Scanning for audio.
Welcome once again to a Tin Dog podcast, recorded on what supposedly will be the hottest day of the year. Yeah, I'm not one of nature's summer people. Now, you may have experienced that in the many years that you've been listening to the Tin Dog podcast, that I am indeed a winter is coming kind of a person. In fact, I had that very conversation with my daughter last night about how hot it was. And yeah, I know there'll be people around the world who are going, oh no, 37 degrees C. That's just an ordinary winter's morning. And yes, I know that out there people are used to something so much colder and so much warmer. But you know, we're English, we're boring, and we talk about the weather. Well, let's not do that. Let's talk about Blake 7. Oh yeah, it's the summer of Blake 7, and we're at story number 3. Cygnus, Brian, Alpha. Because let's face it, Cygnus Alpha wouldn't be Cygnus Alpha without Brian. King Yrcanos himself. Now, when I was a kid, I didn't know about I Clavs, or as I Claudius, as some people insist on calling it. But if you watch the opening titles of I Claudius, you will see that it is called Clavdivs. I didn't know about Fancy Smith. I didn't know anything about Brian, except that he was a shouty man from Flash Gordon. As time's gone by, I've learned to accept him and learn to love him. But after Trial of a Time Lord, well, I was just in a bad place with Uncle Brian. Mad Uncle Brian, the man who wanted to be an astronaut, the man whose heart has finally said, how have you any idea how old you actually are? You seriously need to be slowing down a touch, mate. And yes, in these times of stars dropping like flies, people that we've always loved, like Christopher Lee and Patrick Macnee. Oh, how much I love the Tara King years of the Avengers. They are brilliant. The only thing I never liked about the Avengers was Steed's apartment. All that pine and wood panelling, just not nice. No, you want a dark wood panelling. Oh dear, I'm taking interior decoration tips from episodes of The Avengers, on the subject of which, Tara King's apartment, now that was a nice thing. Oh, there was some seriously good stuff on display. Interior decoration from TV programmes is not a bad thing, but that isn't why we're here. We're here to talk about Brian. No, we're not. We're here to talk about Cygnus Alpha. Now, Cygnus Alpha opens with a really nice previously on Cygnus Alpha, but it doesn't really, that happens a couple of minutes in. It really opens with, hey kids, let's find out how this ship works. Because let's face it, although the programme's called Blake 7 and we now have a spaceship from the titles, at this point, at the opening of episode 3, we still don't know what the spaceship's called. And there is only 3 of them. And Blake's 3, well, you kind of think there's going to be more of them. So they're figuring out how to use the spaceship. They've worked out that it does ridiculously fast speeds. Now, this is the point where I think Jenna, fiddling with the settings, manages to do some sort of antimatter space time warp jump thing to get them even closer to Cygnus Alpha. During that bit with the hairdryers in the face, you know, the massive amounts of G-forces and things like that, that's where most of the 4-month time dilation trip takes place. So when she says, let's do this standard speed, oh look, we've got there fast anyway because it's ridiculously fast, then, well, that's what it is. It isn't that they've been on board ship for 4 months. It's all relative to do with space, time and speed. The fact that it's a faster spaceship than the London means that they could actually get to Cygnus Alpha earlier rather than later, but let's not hold that against them, shall we? I'm sure somebody with a physics degree could explain it all to me very slowly. No. Blake decides to go and rescue his friends he spent 4 months on a spaceship with. Well, that's perfectly fine and altruistic, positively altruistic. No, Blake needs a crew. Blake wants revenge. Revenge is never a very delicate subject. He doesn't want to bring down the Federation at this point, he just wants to hurt them, because they've hurt him. Well, you know what, if it's an eye for an eye, eventually everyone ends up blind. Thank you, Gandhi, move on. Blake is rightfully annoyed. He has every right in the world to be, well, let's call it cross with the people of the Federation. So that's the A plot. Except A plot, B plot, yes, I know that classic Star Trek and a host of other programmes use this, adventure serials mainly, in order to move the plot along and, of course, to stretch out the action and not overtax the actors. Avon is all the time getting the best lines here. This is the bit where they find out about the incredible curling tongue weaponry. Yes, I know they have various looks and can be described in your own imagination in any way you want, but as this is a clean podcast, we'll leave it there. I love Blake 7 and I love the weapons, but there was a time when everything plugged into a battery pack. Yes, I know there's the whole doylist reason for it. The special effects crew wanted somewhere to plug the batteries. Technology wasn't as small as it is these days. And when we get to Aurak, that's a whole new kettle of fish we can talk about later. No, when it comes to technology, I like to think of it in terms of, did anyone else see the Star Trek Anniversary Special with the Tribbles? The one with Deep Space Nine and the old footage all intermixed, and it was glorious to behold. And there's a scene in the film where the Trill is going up in the lift, looking at classic series technology and commenting on how wonderful the technology looked and how chunky and blocky and had a great feel to it. As if it was a design and aesthetic choice that had been made to make the Enterprise look that way. And that's how I'm going to approach Blake 7. Because there's no reason the future shouldn't look like this. Yes, I think that the Liberator itself should have looked a bit more alien, and perhaps should have been on a slightly different scale and something worth going on about, but that's not important, that's not worth going into. The Liberator itself, well, the bridge, the main set, does look pretty good. You get to see some other bits of the ship, but things like the jewellery room and things like that, you'll never get to see because they're always going to be better in your imagination. The TV makers know better. Let's use radio tricks to make things even more fun. So, you've got that storyline going on. Yes, I know there's a bit where you're only allowed to hold one gun at a time, and yet Blake's holding one and he passes another one to Jenna, but we'll let that go. Perhaps the spaceship senses intent. Perhaps it's a mistake. But perhaps the spaceship knows. And of course, Zen wakes up, calls himself Zen, calls the ship Liberator, everybody's happy, and he likes them. He does a quick mental scan and goes, she's cool, I like her, that's fine. That's what happens. So that's great. Meanwhile, on the planet Brian, blessed, is shouting, except he's not. It opens with, well, Cygnus Alpha is dark. It doesn't appear to do anything. It just seems to be miserable and, designed by a mentalist. Yes, we find out that there's a backstory as delivered by one of the people in charge. History written by the winners, shall we say. No, when it comes to this, you've got the woman out of remembrance of the Daleks. Yes, she's kind of cool, and she's kind of here, and she's kind of in charge. She's got a brilliant voice. And yeah, there is a brand new countermeasures due very, very soon, so I'm looking forward to that. I may already have reviewed it, knowing that these will be going out slightly out of order, but I doubt it. Yes, on the big list of dystopian tick-the-boxes, you have got some form of, religion going on here, and that's what's keeping everyone in line, using a popular brand name of extra strong mints. Now, admittedly, they do look like the whole, Catholic mint wafer thing. Not mint wafer, what am I saying? That would be sort of after eights. You know what I mean. I don't even need to go on about that. They're using definite Christian iconography. And there's a nice rusted up gun on them. I was going to say mantelpiece. I mean altar. As you can hear, the heat is getting to me. Winter may be coming. The solstice may have just been. And that's fine by me. I like to think of the summer as something you just need to get through. And that's why the winter is, something you also need to get through. Perhaps I'm an autumn kind of a person. Perhaps I'm talking about the weather too much and not about Cygnus Alpha. You still don't know who the 7 are. There are some primary characters. Yes, Gan you think is going to be sacrificed, and yes, he is the muscle at some point. You're still at this point not sure what he's in for. You're assuming it's some sort of physical crime, but he seems erudite, he can chat, he can talk, he can say things. He's not the thick monster he turns into later. Gan is brave in the sense of practically brave. He knows that you're going to have to go outside at some point. Let's go outside. So that works. So yes, everyone on Cygnus Alpha is kept in line, or at least everyone inside the monastery is kept in line using trickery and religion. But then again, if you've read Blue Box Messiah, isn't that what religion's for? Perhaps, perhaps not. Religion rather than faith. Let's face it. Pay attention when you're reading Blue Box Messiah. Brian has one massive speech. He gives you the history of the planet in a nice potted format, and he is as shouty as King Yrcanos here. And you know what? Brian is so much more powerful when he isn't shouting. The whispering Brian is a much better performance. But then again, you know this already. I have no issues whatsoever with this story. It's tight, it's well paced, and yes, it's slow by modern TV standards, but I'm not going to apologise for that. I adore Blake 7 and always will. Cygnus Alpha is a very strong story. It's interesting to note, however, in this story we also get the teleport system explained. And the teleport system, yes, we know why it exists. Again, from the Doylist approach, it makes things easier getting from A to B, and it also gives them a technological edge on the Federation itself. But the Federation's well on its way using, what's the chemical called? Aralditium or something like that. Aquitar, that's it. And how it works is beyond me, because I've always wondered about transportation technology. People should be really standing in the same position, and then they should arrive in the same position, holding the same shape. Now, I know actors can't always do this, especially when it comes to something like Time Squad. Time Squad coming your way very soon. But the basic technology means getting from A to B, and yes, it's a video effect. Even when it's done on location, it's got that lovely white Ready Brek line round it. Ready Brek showing my age. It's a truly wonderful episode. And yes, it's got flaws, but it moves along and it tells you everything you need to know, and especially about Avon and Jenna, because their little chat about leaving, and Jenna having pangs of conscience, well, that's just impressive. So, is it worthy of watching? Of course it is. It's Blake 7. Is it a decent enough story? Still bringing people on board? Why, of course it is. The exploding Brian at the end? Not really a problem. The fact that he shouts no in space, you could hear him, well, that's more dramatic license than anything else. Who's to say a lot of air didn't get transported at the same time? I, for one, don't know how technology works, and I don't really need to. Yes, let's go down this corridor and get changed. The wardrobe room, like the TARDIS wardrobe room, is better never seen. And with that, I'll fade away and come back very soon with the next exciting Blake 7 story, or perhaps even something from Big Finish. Until next time, be seeing you. You've been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Available on RSS, iTunes, Stitcher, Audio Boom and Tumblr. Doctor Who and its associated works are copyright of the BBC. No infringement is intended. You can contact the show, donate, buy merchandise or find out more about my other projects by visiting the Tin Dog Podcast homepage and clicking on the links. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance. On the 5th of September 2015, Hooverville will return. The biggest little Doctor Who convention in the whole of the UK is proud to present several fantastic guests. First off is the Colin Baker, a man who needs absolutely no introduction. Guests also include the author Jenny Colgan, responsible for Dark Horizons and Time Trips, Richard Marson, the man behind JNT, The Life and Scandalous Times, and the brand new book Drama and Delight, the biography of Verity Lambert, Dan Starkey, the man behind the mask when it comes to Commander Strax, and of course Ian the Elf in the Christmas special, Terence Dix, one of the men behind The Third Doctor and more Target novelisations than you can shake a stick at. The actor David Benson, from Robot of Sherwood, Iris Wildthyme and The Scarifiers. Matthew Waterhouse, yes, Adrake. Michael Pickwood, the current production manager on Doctor Who. And Karen Louise Hollis, author of The Man Behind the Master, the biography of Anthony Ainley. More guests may be added, but either way, that's a fantastic lineup. Visit the Derby Quad website on www.derbyquad.co.uk and follow the links. Saturday the 5th of September 2015. See you there.
Snyder.